Yo, what is going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart, and today I'll be breaking down the 13-game NBA slates we have on DraftKings for Friday night. Just want to say happy Thanksgiving, guys. Hope you guys had a great Thanksgiving. I'm recording this a day early. I'm recording this Wednesday night, actually. So I'm not really sure how the NFL slate went. Hopefully you guys took down the $1 million to first, or hopefully I did. We'll have to see. But hopefully you guys have full stomachs and are ready to play DraftKings NBA tomorrow. Huge 13-game slates because obviously there's no games on tonight when you're watching this because the NFL games are happening. So yeah, if you guys are new to the channel, I make daily NBA NFL slate breakdowns. So hit that like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell. Also, link down below is my Patreon where I'll be putting up my write-ups for the NBA and NFL slates. It's free, 100% free. You can go on there, click the link, head on over to my Patreon, and you'll get the free breakdown, where I go a little bit more in depth on my favorite spin up plays and all that good stuff. So make sure to check that out. Follow me on Twitter at HartDFS. Now let's get into the slate breakdown. Before we get into the breakdown, just want to do a little look back at my lineup here from Wednesday night. I entered this into the big, just $1 tournament. I think it was the 40K and 20 entry max. It's just $1 entry. Won $4, 4 times my money, but obviously nothing huge. But it was nice to see, a decently high score from me, 321. Got 955th place out of 41,000 lineup. So I guess that, you can pat yourself on the back for that. But I went with Shake Milton, Brandon Ingram, Bruce Brown, Zion, Vooch, Sexton, Powell, Harrell. Now, as I mentioned in my Patreon write-up, I knew this slate was going to be absolute chaos with injury news. And that's kind of what happened. It was quiet all day. And about 30 minutes before lock, all the news started happening and started to come out. So I ended up, originally in my write-up, I was really focused on Kyrie and DeJounte and then Simons and then Terrence Mann. And then once we got all the injury news, we really had to pivot everywhere. I went back to Shake Milton. He was just a little too cheap, as I mentioned in my video. Brandon Ingram, CJ McCollum got ruled out, so I really, really liked Brandon Ingram and Zion versus the Spurs. Brandon Ingram shot the ball twice in the first half. Really don't understand that because that's super, super frustrating. Super low owned, and he's only going to shoot the ball twice in the first half. But he, ended up making it up a little bit in the back half, second half. Bruce Brown, super low owned. We got the news that Jamal Murray was ruled out. MPJ was ruled out. So really like Bruce Brown there. Obviously, he went off for a triple-double. Wild. But 60 fantasy points, 60 bomb there. Zion, 3% owned. He went off for 54 against the Spurs. Vooch, 2.7% owned. Once again, Vooch just didn't want to shoot the ball. I think he shot the ball like 5 times in the first half. Super frustrated about that. He really picked it up in basically the fourth quarter at the end of the game. But yeah, could have been a big night from Vooch. Sexton, talked about, I really like Sexton. I think Michael Beasley did great as well. So if you played both of them, you were looking pretty solid. And then Norman Powell was decent. And then I went to Montrezl Harrell. He was okay. So yeah, 321. The winning lineup was, at least for this one, I'm sure it'd probably be the winning one across the board. Shake Milton, Sexton, Bruce Brown, Towns, Paul Reed, SGA. I talked about Aaron Gordon, how I really liked that matchup. I really wanted to go back to him, but it was just, once we got all the news, pivoted around, wasn't able to get to this forward slot with him. And then Norman Powell. So let's get into this 12-game slates breakdown. As I mentioned, recording this a day early. So hopefully, NFL went great for you guys. And it's a huge 13-game slate, which is going to be wild. Going to be a ton of injury news. I unfortunately will not be able to keep up with injury news. So I'm just here to kind of break the slate down, kind of going into it. And then, you guys will have to just kind of keep updated on the injury news on your front. But we got Philadelphia, Orlando, first game. Embiid out, Harden still out, Maxey still out. The price up Melton to 8,200. I mean, at that price, he's done great the past 2 games. Just a little bit too pricey for me. Harris at 8K, kind of the same thing. Kind of came back down to earth in that Charlotte matchup, which is wild to see. But yeah, they're both too pricey for me to get to. I think Shake Milton, once again, is just way too cheap. 6,000. You see the minutes, you see the usage. 46 fantasy points, 31.5, 6,000. 5 times in that salary is 30, so he looks great there. Harrell priced up about right now. He looks okay. Paul Reed, same, now that they're pretty much the same price, really prefer just getting to Harrell. Niang, just kind of there. Yeah, I mean, they kind of priced these guys up about right, so where they're not really great value as of right now. I guess Korkmaz is still there. Played 20 minutes. He's been brutal. Otherwise, it's just, really just Shake Milton for me, and that's it. On the Orlando side, Paolo is questionable. Looks like he participated in practice, so I'm assuming he'll be back. I'm not sure if he'll be limited. If he's good to go, 8,600, I think that's a very solid price for him. That takes kind of Wendell out of consideration. Obviously, if one of them's in, one of them's out, I do have a good amount of interest in whoever's in. If they're both in, only Paolo. And if Paolo's out, do like Wendell a good amount. With those guys back, I'm assuming one of them will be back. Everyone else is just kind of secondary plays, almost priced up a little bit too much for me. Franz at 7,500 is not the best price point for him. Same thing with Bol. He's been good this year, but with all those guys back, the usage does kind of flow through Paolo when he's back. Otherwise, it kind of flows through Wendell, Franz, Suggs, a little bit of Bol. So yeah, I really don't have a lot of interest in this Magic team with that main guy of Paolo being back. Mo Bamba's up to 6,400. Obviously, if both of them are out for some reason, you could definitely run it back with the starting five. At least one or two pieces look solid. But otherwise, if one of them is back or both of them is back, really takes everyone else out of play. Chuma's out. For some reason, Mo Wagner's back. That eats into Chuma's minutes. Mo is priced up. Yeah, I mean, there's just no good prices besides Terrence Ross as a dart throw off the bench for that Orlando side. Portland, we have Dame, who's still out. Simon, 7,600. He looks very solid. Really bad game tonight. 38 minutes, only 31 fantasy points. I think he had like 13 fantasy points at half. So yeah, I do think people will get, they get burned and they won't want to go back to him. So I do like him a good amount. I talked about Jeremy Grant kind of takes over the offensive role. He had a pretty solid game there. The price isn't the best, but he does have a little bit of a ceiling with Dame still out. So I do have a little bit of interest in both of them. Same thing with the Nurkic. The minutes are kind of just all over the board with Nurk. 28 minutes, 36.5 fantasy points, 6,800. I mean, I'd love Nurk if he just got, 33 minutes, 34, a normal slate of minutes for a really solid big man, but he's just not getting it. Josh Hart, decent, 6,500. I think the best interest for me besides maybe Simons is going to be Justice Winslow. 28 minutes off the bench, didn't shoot well, but still got you 25.5 fantasy points. Kind of that poor man triple double, or kind of that poor man's Draymond Green. So I do like him a good amount there for 4,100 is solid value. That's really it. New York Knicks side, Randall 8,400, solid matchup. A decent matchup. Jeremy Grant is a solid defender, but yeah, I think he's priced about right. I mean, my interest is still in Jalen Brunson coming off a huge game. Do really like him. He's kind of got a limited ceiling, but I do like him a good amount. Favorite play is still going to be RJ. I talked about that bounce back spot. He went off for 38.5 fantasy points at 6,100. The price jumped up 200. Still think it's a great price tag for RJ, even though kind of all three of them have limited ceilings when all three of them are playing, but I still have a good amount of interest there in RJ. Isaiah Hartenstein, he's just not playing enough minutes. Mitchell Robinson, he's questionable. He participated in most of the practice. I'm assuming they'll split minutes. They both are kind of priced about right. Only interest would be in quickly in that value off the bench. He's a very boomer bust guy. 4,900, not the best price tag, but he looks solid. Cam Reddish was doing some work. Maybe he plays. We'll have to see. But at 4,000, I guess if he starts, decent value. Sims probably drops back down to maybe 10 to 15 minutes, or I'd say 10 minutes if those two big men are back. I guess, Toppin gets some minutes, but you just don't really feel great. Grimes is starting. He was solid value. If he starts again, you can look to him, but I'm assuming they'd maybe look to Art or Cam off the bench to start again. Who really knows? I guess my only interest really is going to be RJ Barrett, and then quickly, and then whoever out of those, shooting guards, whether it's Reddish or whether it's Quentin Grimes starts, I'd have interest in the starter, and I guess a little bit of interest in whoever, comes off the bench in that situation. Moving on to the Kings versus Boston. Once again, Fox, Sabonis, priced about right. I guess I prefer getting to Sabonis here. He's a little bit foul prone, but he does have triple-double upside. Just really hasn't been aggressive offensively the past few games. I guess the past 5 games, 17, 16, 15, 9, 15. Not sure why he's not scoring more. But yeah, I do expect him to start picking it up in terms of scoring. Very solid matchup here against Boston. So I do like Sabonis a decent amount. Herter, as I mentioned, a boomer bust guy. Either going to get you 20 fantasy points or 40, somewhere in between, 6,100. decent price tag to, pay for him. Harrison Barnes with Keegan Murray back, just don't really think he to get there. Malik Monk's always viable in tournament situations because he can absolutely, go off. So he looks solid. Keegan Murray looks okay. Hasn't been great recently. That's really it. Trey Lyles has been getting some minutes because Keegan Murray has been injured, but not a lot of value on that Sacramento side that you really feel good about. Boston, Tatum looks very solid at 10-8. We know what we're getting from him. Same thing with Jaylen Brown. The prices really haven't moved. Prefer getting to Jaylen Brown for a tournament option just because he's a little bit more boomer bust, and that's kind of what you want in a tournament setting. Marcus Smart, kind of just contrarian point guard play at 6K. Al Horford, always a little bit of interest in Al because he had 5'6". He could easily pay off that price tag. He's been solid recently, so I don't mind him. Derek White, kind of with everyone back. Don't really think you have to force him. Brogdon, I guess he'd be my second favorite play besides maybe Jaylen Brown on the Boston side, just because he does have a little bit of ceiling, but still, once again, he's limited on the minutes. So you don't really feel great going to him at 5,100, even though it's a solid price tag. Williams should see about 20, 30 minutes. He looks okay at 5,000. That's really it. Washington and Miami. Beal was out tonight, but I'm assuming he'll be back in that game Friday night. So at their price tags, not a lot of interest. And then it really drops off to the rest of the team. Morris, I'm assuming, will be back. He looks okay at 4,900. Don't mind him. Denny, kind of assumed the ball handling role. Almost got a triple-double, 44 fantasy points. 4,600, looks okay. With Beal back, with Morris back, really expect, Denny to have a huge usage drop. So I don't think he to chase that. Rui looks okay, kind of scoring depending off the bench. Kispert priced about right. So yeah, with everyone back, most likely for this game Friday night, not a lot of interest in these Wizards guys. Yeah, it's Will Barton if you want to force that. He's getting minutes. He was solid last game versus Miami, but with those guys back, he's just more kind of a boomer bust play like Terrence Ross. For the Miami side, Jimmy is maybe back. If he's back, I'm assuming he will be back. The whole team will most likely be back. I know Strus is out tonight, but I'm assuming they'll be full strength going into this game Friday night. And so at their prices, really no interest in anyone on the side. Hero and Jimmy are going to run the offense. Spam is kind of there. Kyle Lowry could have a good game or a bad game. So yeah, they're just all priced up a little too high for me. Same with Martin. My only interest would be really Gabe Vincent off the bench if you want some value, but not a lot of interest in either one of those teams for that matchup. Chicago, once again, I mentioned how those guys in Chicago were too cheap. DeRozan coming off a very solid game against Milwaukee, 59 fantasy points. Price hasn't moved. Matchup fantastic against OKC. So I do have a lot of interest in these three Bulls players. If I was going to get to someone, it'd probably be Zach and Vooch, just because they're a little bit cheaper, but I think all three of them. DeMar is really the leader of this team right now, and then Vooch is kind of just there, sandwiching between him and Zach. But yeah, good amount of interest, all three. Pat Williams, solid value. Price really hasn't moved. Io, I guess you can take a dart throw, but he's really been under 24 fantasy points pretty much every game. Drummond, I guess, is always a tournament option if Vooch gets in some random foul trouble. Caruso is just kind of there. Kobe saw 25 minutes tonight, so he'd be solid value, 30 fantasy points. Kind of boomer bust when it comes to scoring for Kobe. He can go out there and shoot 2 of 10, but yeah, probably be my favorite play besides, one of the three main guys there. On the OKC side, SGA probably going to cook the Bulls, so he looks very solid as a spend up at 10-2. Giddey, I do like Giddey a good amount, 7,000. I feel like this is a better matchup for him in terms of just being able to do his kind of run his game. So I do like him a good amount. Lou Dort's just kind of there. Same thing with Poku. He not a bad matchup for Poku, but once again, he got benched in the second half. So I really don't understand this OKC coach. He starts guys and then benches them in the second half for other guys. So it's an absolute crapshoot for pretty much everyone besides the top three guys. Jalen Williams still remains solid value. JRE saw more minutes because Poku got benched. Basley saw some minutes. So it's just all over the board. Really don't feel great going to any of these guys as value plays besides Jalen Williams. I guess you could take a shot in Poku. He does have a decent ceiling. it's not a bad matchup either. So I guess I have a little bit of interest there, but yeah, don't feel great about rostering anyone on OKC besides the main three guys. For the Pelicans, assuming CJ's back, so that leaves, Brandon Ingram, CJ, and Zion, all pretty much priced about the same. Obviously, a great matchup here against Memphis. I think my favorite play would be Zion. Should be able to do well here against Memphis. They're pretty small. But yeah, I think they're all three are viable. No real strong take. Valanciunas is kind of there with all three of them most likely back. Don't think you get to force Valanciunas. Steven Adams is an adequate defender. Larry Nance, you can always go to him. Maybe J Val gets in foul trouble. Murphy, Jones, kind of there. Alvarado, you can always punt play with him. But yeah, not really a strong take on that Pelican side. Memphis side, Ja, priced about right. We know we're getting from him. Bane, most likely still out. So, yep, Burke's going to be kind of that secondary guy. Jaren Jackson Jr., the minutes are starting to trend up, so I do like him. He's been averaging like 2 fantasy points per minute, which has actually been insane. As you can see, 5 blocks, 5 combined blocks and steals, 7 blocks and steals. So I don't know if he can continue this. He's kind of on that streak like OG, but if you think he does, obviously it's a solid matchup here. He's very foul prone. Him guarding Zion, I don't know how that's going to work out. He could instantly get in foul trouble like right at the beginning of the game. Last year, he was very, very foul prone, especially in the playoffs. So just keep that in mind. 6,800, solid price tag for him. Decent matchup, but once again, Zion could get that man in foul trouble, and he could absolutely tank you at 6,800. Conchar just kind of priced about right. Tyus Jones, a little too expensive for me. So yeah, it's Steven Adams. I think he'd be my second favorite play besides Jaren Jackson Jr. Just for that, upside when it comes to a double-double. That's really it. I know Brandon Clark's kind of just there. On to the second half of the slate. Cleveland and Milwaukee. We got Mitchell and Garland. We know they're both going to run the offense. They both have had a decent ceiling alongside each other. They're kind of like DeJounte and Trey. I prefer getting to Donovan just because he's a little bit more better of a scorer, I guess, and a little bit more ball dominant and aggressive. Garland's more of like the playmaker setting up the offense. So I do prefer Mitchell over Garland. But they're both kind of at that price range where it's like you don't feel great rostering them, especially in this tough matchup against Milwaukee. Mobley, Allen just priced up a little too high for me. Maybe Kevin Love's back. If he's back, I do like taking a shot on him, even though he's been a little bit sus with that thumb. And then Seti, solid value off the bench, really dropped back down to earth that last game versus Portland tonight. Stevens has been in the start, but he's really not been doing much. Dean Wade got some limited minutes off the bench, 18. So yeah, it'd really be Seti as a value play, and that's really it. On the Milwaukee side, Giannis, once again, priced up just very, very high. Hard to get to him unless some value opens up. I really like Drew Holiday at this price. As I mentioned, not really sure why he only shot 6 times versus the Bulls. It really makes no sense, but he's one of those guys, he should shoot close to 20 times a game, at least 15, if not closer to 20. And he's playing a ton of minutes, has a ton of steal upside, block upside. He's a very solid defender. So I do like a good amount of Drew Holiday there at that price tag. Bobby Portis, price slowly coming down. Not enough for me to have interest in him. Brook Lopez has been decent this year. So if you want to go to him, you could. But yeah, it's really just Drew Holiday for me. That's really it. Pat Connaughton, solid value play. 60 minutes, 14, not the best, but he's coming back from injury, so I do expect him to get closer to that 20-minute mark. So you can go to him. Brooklyn and Indiana, KD, 11,000. Not been great the past 2 games with Kyrie back. So not a lot of interest, even though it's a fantastic matchup against Indiana. But you can definitely go to him. 11K is not terrible to pay for KD. Kyrie, it's going to be hard for me not to roster him for a 4th time in a row. I mean, if you guys follow me on Twitter, you see my tweets. He's pissed me off 3 nights in a row. I don't get it. 5 minutes in the first quarter, only 28 overall. I mean, the game did blow out in the 4th quarter, but come on. How bad are you going to be, Kyrie? So once again, he'll be pretty much 0% owned. I don't even know what to say anymore about him. Ben Simmons, price is slowly getting up there, but I do still have a good amount of interest in him. Royce O'Neal, priced about right. Solid value play. He's been great the past 3 games, so if you want to go to him, don't mind it. Claxton, very solid game against Toronto. I guess he's, a solid value play there at 5,200. That's really it. Joe Harris, 2 scoring dependent. Seth, you could look to Seth off the bench. He should see about 25-ish minutes. little score independent, but 4,100, not bad. That's really it. Indiana side, Halliburton 9,400 looks solid. Coming off a bad shooting game, 415. We know his floor is pretty much like 40 fantasy points, even when he shoots bad. So very solid there, 9,400. Turner, decent matchup, decent price, good amount of interest there. Hield, I do like these Indiana guys. Hield's been terrible the past week and a half, so that price has come down to great point for him. Mathurin's just still limited on the minutes. Jalen Smith, very up and down, 22 minutes. Once again, if he's going to play 30 minutes, he has a really good shot of getting the double-double and going off, but the minutes are just all over the place for him. TJ McConnell, 4,100. Yeah, I'm assuming Nembhard might be back. Isaiah Jackson might be back. You'd always take a shot on Isaiah Jackson. This kind of sets up for a great game environment for him, even though the minutes aren't secure. If Jalen Smith's doing bad or if Turner's in foul trouble, whatever it may be, Jackson makes for a great point per minute guy there. That's about it. Atlanta and Houston. Fantastic matchup for Atlanta. Trae Young has been very disappointing in terms of just fantasy so far. I do like them a good amount. You really want to target Houston. I'm still on the DeJounte Murray train, even though he kind of burned us here at 35 fantasy points. I do like that price tag. Clint Capella looks solid. Houston chucks the ball a ton, so this should be a great game for Clint Capella to get a good amount of rebounds and that double-double upside. John Collins, just kind of there, that X-factor play. Hunter should be back, should be playing about 34-ish minutes. He looks like an okay value play at 5,300. AJ Griffin's been doing great off the bench. I guess okay value. And then Okongwu is always decent value as well. Houston side, we have KPJ. He is 7,900. He's been great the past 2 games. Don't mind going to him. Jalen Green, 7,200. We know he's going to chuck, a little bit score independent, but I guess I prefer getting to KPJ just for a little bit more upside and safer floor. Sengun looks decent, 6,400. Kind of come back down to earth the past week and a half, but we know he has a solid upside. So I do like Sengun a good amount. Maybe my favorite play on this Rocket side. Jabari Smith, just kind of there. Eric Gordon had a good game 2 games ago. Otherwise, I don't really think you need to play Eric Gordon. I guess he's an okay value at 4,400. KJ Martin, seen about 25-ish minutes. Okay value. I guess I prefer getting to Martin over Gordon. Bruno might be back. Saul hasn't played yet. Might be back. Eason seen about 20-ish minutes. So not a lot of interest in the Rockets besides kind of the main 3. And I guess you're going to get to one of those value plays, but you don't feel great getting them. Lakers, Anthony Davis has been unreal the past 5 games. 56, 63, 70, 64, 84. I'm assuming Brown's back. If he is, I prefer just getting to LeBron, even though that's kind of an elevated price tag for LeBron there. It really hasn't been aggressive this year. But if he's out, I guess you can go look back to AD. Fantastic matchup. He's been unreal. So, yeah, it just depends if LeBron's back. And then obviously if LeBron's out, once again, you could look to Russ. Solid price there. Reeves and Walker have been solid as plays there in the mid-range. Schroeder, about 20-ish minutes. So I guess we don't have to get to Schroeder yet. He's just been bad. And then Bryant only saw 11 minutes. So, yeah, it's pretty much just 80 if LeBron's out. 80, I guess, 80, Russell, Lonnie, and Reeves. If LeBron's out, if he's in, it's really just LeBron. And I guess 80, you could still go to him. The Spurs side, Keldon, Vassell, Podol, all look solid. I guess I prefer getting to Podol, even though it's a little bit tougher of a matchup guarding AD. Trey Jones is kind of there. Not a lot of interest in him at 6,200. That's really it. Everyone should be good to go. Josh Richardson missed this game. You should see about 22-ish minutes if he's back. Okay value. John Collins maybe sees about 20-ish. I guess he's a decent point per minute guy. He'd be my favorite value play off that bench. But yeah, I guess the guys on the Spurs side are just kind of there for me. Detroit, Phoenix, Cade's still out, most likely. Bogdan, his price is finally above Jaden's just because he's been a better player. So I not a lot of priorities for me on this side. Jaden's kind of just there. He does have some upside. Hasn't been great with Cade been out. Burks, I think Burks is still my favorite play. The minutes aren't great on Burks, but he's been very, very productive when he's out there. 5,200 is still a solid price tag for him. Killian Hayes has just been god-awful, so hopefully Burks gets Killian Hayes minutes because that'd be a great play in Burks there at 5,200. Sadiq Bey was out. it looks like he won't be good to go. So you can look to Bagley. Solid game there on only 21 minutes, but the minutes aren't great. I guess I prefer getting to Duran. Minutes are solid. Obviously not going to be involved offensively too much, but he looks decent. Knox has actually been playing very well for them past 3 games. So if you want to ride the hot streak there, sure, but he is very score independent, especially from 3. That's pretty much all he does is go out there and shoot 3s. So if he's not hitting the shots, even at 3,600, he could really screw you. So just keep that in mind. Livers saw 20-ish minutes. So yeah, not a ton of interest in Detroit. Phoenix, Booker looks great, but he's just priced up a little bit too high for me. Paul, if he's back, looks like a solid play there. Maybe he gets limited on minutes. Obviously would take campaign out of contention. Same thing with like Ayton and Brooks. Really not a lot of interest if Paul's back. If he's out, you could guess you could still get to, one of these 3 secondary paces and still get to Booker, but really not a lot of interest. Damian Lee is solid value off the bench. Dwayne, okay value off the bench, very score independent. So yeah, not a lot of interest. Phoenix, Utah, Golden State. Laurie looks solid. He's been solid this season, or actually really good. Jordan priced about right. We know what we're getting from Olenek and Vanderbilt. Prefer getting into Olenek. He's a better scorer. I mean, they're both solid point per against guy. I guess I prefer getting to Olenek. Beasley and Sexton have kind of been, the best 2. Beasley had an unreal night, 55 fantasy points. So yeah, I guess I prefer getting to Beasley and Sexton still, with a little bit of edge to Sexton, just because he's going to be coming in a lot lower ownership. People are going to be chasing Beasley, but I think they both look very solid. Horton Tucker, also very solid off the bench. Minutes have come down a little bit, but I guess it's there's kind of Sexton and Horton Tucker for me on the Utah side. Golden State, Steph, excuse me. A little bit of excuse me, I'm sorry if that blew out your guys' eardrums. I like running back with Steph here. Good matchup. It should be a good game. Kind of came back down to earth in this game versus the Clippers. They also did blow them out, so didn't have to do too much. Wiggins looked solid. He had a huge game. A little bit of an outlier, but, he's always kind of that secondary play. Poole, Green, Thompson, they're all, tournament plays. My favorite play would be, Clay, even though he's been very hot and cold. I mean, that's really it. Lamb, I guess, is an okay value play off the bench. DiVincenzo's seen some minutes, but yeah, not a lot of interest besides Steph and Wiggins. And then for Denver, Jokic looks great here against the Clippers, 11-4, coming off of a near triple-double. I'm assuming all of these guys will be back. They got ruled out the last second today with nothing major. So with all of them back, I guess I prefer getting to either Jamal Murray or an Aaron Gordon. Not the best matchup for Aaron Gordon, but still, I mean, at 6,000, a solid price tag for him. Bruce Brown, yeah, I mean, just not a lot of interest in this Denver side at their price tags. I guess MPJ would be my favorite there. He's the best. He's his best. He's at his best when everyone's in, which kind of, I guess, makes sense and doesn't make sense at the same time for a player of his caliber. But yeah, I guess he'd be my favorite play, and then I guess Gordon and Murray would be my second favorite plays. Unless you can get up to Jokic, then I think Jokic is obviously the best. George and Leonard are both like without a timetable. Not really sure what's going on over there with these guys. If George is back, obviously he's a solid spend up. Always super low owned. Zubac, not the best matchup for him, but maybe that should keep his ownership low, and you can definitely go to him. Has a solid ceiling. John Wall, just the minutes are just not there. I don't see the interest in him. Same thing with anyone else. If Paul George is back, it really takes interest out of anyone besides Zubac. If he's still out, you can definitely look to Reggie, Powell. It's kind of the leaders of the team. Not really sure why Reggie only saw 22 minutes tonight. I mean, the game did kind of blow out, but yeah. Morris would kind of pick up scoring, but yeah, not a lot of interest. Powell would be, I guess, the favorite play because he's been actually solid at shooting the ball recently. Man would still be a little bit too cheap there at 3,800. He actually shot it a good amount, so you do like to see that. Coffee got the start as well, so he played 36 minutes. So yeah, it just comes down to if Paul George is in or out to get to that. So yeah, if you guys like the slate breakdown of the video, hit the like button, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.